magazine, and it's an international recognized day for social media. Okay, it is not today. It is actually June 30th every year. We chose Saturday because I'm a dunce, but we chose Saturday thinking that we could get a lot more people here. We didn't realize how much the Tri-Cities was going to grow over the course of the year and how much was going to be happening on this exact day. And so we didn't have quite the turnout that I had hoped. But this is an annual event, and we will continue to have these year in, year out. They will be on June 30th from this point forward, unless June 30th falls on a Sunday and we will not get anybody here. So that's kind of the plan moving forward with this. But I hope that answered your question. This is Social Media Day, and we're just kind of recognizing it in this way. So every year we're going to try and mix things up a little bit with regards to how we're going to present Social Media Day or recognize it. But largely, the people that are interested in it most at this point are people that are looking for a professional purpose. And so that's the bent that we generally have for Social Media Day, is help those folks know a little bit more about how to use social media. So, the other question.
With all of the different services and ways of using Tumblr, Line, whatever changes I can other than Facebook, is there something that seems to be
Periscope,
like where ads should be better for those in
Oh, you want me to say it out loud?
I want you to use voice, yes.
Or you have to sit up.
Okay, I'll say. I think something that I've seen recently, especially with a lot of millennials, really, and even the older people, 35. Oh, you passed me. It's Periscope or Meerkat. Have you heard of those? It's yeah, it's online streaming stuff where it's an app on your phone and you can just stream everything that you're doing.
Yeah. To expand on that, I agree. And actually, I've seen a lot of progress in that, and it's relatively new. It's within roughly the last 6 months, give or take. And it wasn't available on all platforms, operating systems until very recently, in fact. Periscope, Meerkat, they are a lot like what we're doing with the Hanging Out on Air. It's a broadcast, okay? And people can access that broadcast from Twitter, for example. And basically watch what you're doing, right? You could just walk around town 10 minutes and be totally self-absorbed, right? and trip over things and make viral videos out of that. But
social videos.
Social videos, right? Well, they become viral when you have an accident.
It's true.
No. So these are a lot like the Snapchat. If you're familiar with Snapchat, another big millennial tool, if you will. So they only last for so long, and they don't.
I think it was created to reduce the embarrassment factor that you get on it.
Yeah.
My 2 cents on that. I always like to say when I work with clients so yeah, with millennials and 2015, there's always going to be new platforms coming up and coming out. So don't get overwhelmed with that. I would say just I think that's kind of my biggest thing, and what I talked about on there. You don't have to be on every platform. And also, I think for someone who, if you're not a millennial or if you're just a business owner trying to figure out how to attract them, it can drive you crazy to try to figure out how to get onto each platform. Last year I presented on Twitter for business, and the whole presentation was just on Twitter because it merits, just that platform alone merits an entire presentation on how to figure out how to work on that platform and attract people. So I would say really look at just, again, being strategic. So it's good to be in the know about what's coming out, but think about your brand. If your brand is not really video heavy, or just think about what makes sense. It's good to be aware of it, but that's where I say it's, be strategic, or look at what other brands are doing similar to yours and what's working on this platform. Because otherwise, it's even overwhelming for me, and I'm a millennial. So if you're a business owner trying to figure out how to attract them, There's going to be another Facebook sort of thing coming out at some point. So all these sorts of things we're talking about are similar to Snapchat. There's a competitor for every new platform that comes out. There's another one on the way.
Mhm.
So there are some staples that are staying though. Facebook is around, Twitter is going to be around for a while. So there's a couple that are kind of stable and seem to have really kind of set their place. But that's just kind of my biggest thing to say to business owners or people trying to look into what's going on, because I guarantee you in 5 more years we're going to have tons more. But like you mentioned, some of them phase in and out. Like Foursquare was one that was big at one point, especially for businesses. That's not really as relevant anymore. So there are a lot of things. And I've seen that when I remember when I started at L'Oreal, they had me learn everything I could know about Foursquare. This is a huge corporation, invested all this time in it, and then it didn't even, the platform didn't even end up working for the brand. So just, be aware of that and don't get too
They
afraid,
changed
because
the
they're
name. It's
always
not as effective as it used to be.
Does
Granddaughter.
that become a time when you actually learn what to do?
Oh.
Sort of like science. They don't even know how to do it.
Well, I would say that's
It's
more
not
for
that they
Foursquare
changed,
as
they just
the
added
company itself.
the different
But as a business owner, I think you should just, I think it's a matter of figuring out, saving your time as a business owner, because what I know as a business owner is that you have 500 other things you're thinking about besides social media. So if you can figure out what platform to be on that makes sense and figure out your strategy, then I think that's a good
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Kind of learning about it, knowing about it, and yet still having a strategy that helps you keep it simple. That's kind of my approach. So there's 3 things that I do on Facebook. That's it. And I'm just working in that paradigm of those 3 things. And don't worry about the other stuff.
Yeah.
This is, I don't know if this one is very expert, but I'm still interested in Hispanics. Do you have any insight about if you can separate Hispanics in social media, or if they are really mixed with the other population? If you actually have here work and Sesame here in the United States that uses Spanish speaking, any other experience on that?
I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert on that. I will say that we did have someone who is familiar with that in the audience here earlier. Rick is pretty informed on that and is actually probably one of the more connected Latinos, and has a lot to say about that. With his perspective, and I've downloaded from him a little bit, so if I misspeak, you go to the source, right? His perspective is that it's all about collaboration, but to take that a step further, collaboration happens on so many different areas, and so for the Latino market, actually it's happening on blogs and news sources that service that Latino community, and then those are so niche that they have a handful of key social profiles out there that are really heavy and well used. My personal experience with regards to approaching that is that it's really, really difficult. I have a client that serves the immigrant population, primarily the Spanish-speaking immigrant population, and it is painfully difficult to reach them because there's 2 different sides of this. Okay, there's the younger generation that doesn't do anything in Spanish anymore. They've integrated into the English-speaking community, and they're going to be using the exact same things that all the other millennials are using. And then there's the Spanish-speaking Hispanic community that isn't going to be on anything. And you're going to have a terrible time trying to connect with them. Okay? So you have to either leverage the millennials to speak to the older generation, or go through typical channels, which right now, for that particular client, is radio. That's,
Like those kind of.
yeah, radio is probably the most effective. Now, there is a difference regionally speaking with regards to approaching the Latino communities, because if you were to use social media in, let's say, Miami, you're gonna have Puerto Ricans, you're gonna have a whole slew of different Latino communities, and they are wildly different. I mean, very different. They speak the same language, but their cultures are very, very different, and identifiably so. But you will be able to reach within those different segments through social media for regional areas. Like Miami would be a prime example of where you could reach through social media to those areas using the Spanish language. And again, I have very limited experience with that, but I have that through this immigration attorney. Some experience with how to reach those audiences. It is valuable.
I would just piggyback on that too and say that it is definitely the millennial, like you mentioned, you have the millennial or the second generation, often second generation Hispanic, and then you have their parents that are usually fully Spanish speaking. And it's definitely most of the time you're not going to get the mother of the millennial, but the Spanish speaking person they're not on Facebook or Twitter. Whereas, in the American society, an American mother would be on Facebook because they're usually tracking the channel. They're doing that sort of thing. Hispanic, you don't see that as much. But what you will see, I would say, is actually video does help, and not because the Spanish-speaking market is looking at them, but because of the millennials. So you have millennial kids that are saying, "Hey, mom, check out this video," and they're like, a lot of them are saying, "Okay, I'm not interested in this." But if there's some sort of captivating video or humor, we talked about humor, that sort of thing does catch their eye a little bit because that is entertaining. I actually spent a lot of time. There's an area, I think it's called it's in Prescott, Washington. It's kind of in between here. So I actually spent a lot of time there, and with a lot of immigrant families as well, and that's what's happening a lot. They're also streaming a lot of stuff now on the internet and videos. So I would say, while it is still very difficult, video is definitely to do it, and it is through the millennial that connects to that market. So depending on which you're trying to reach, if you're trying to reach the parent, it's usually going to be through the millennial, and if it's something that they feel like they can share with their parent or get time in front of them, it can be effective.
I would also say, answering the question that you had earlier as well, my experience is Facebook, and there is that tool on Facebook for the audience finding. You can go in there and you can select every different option that you can think of to figure out who those people are that are actually on Facebook, and what language they speak, and where they're from, and their ages. You can find out all that information and the numbers of people that corresponds with by using that tool. So I think that would be a place to start.
You also just look at their values too, the Spanish culture is completely different. None of it actually makes sense. Our values are completely different. The different cultural things. So they value family a lot and family oriented. So if you're trying to market to them, kind of keeping that in mind in terms of what they value versus what's different. No, I figured that. Yeah.
Some insight with the values and the language.
Yeah.
But it's always good to know what other people.
Don't mind me, I'm just cleaning that.
I know you want. I didn't want to hear. I know you were going to talk about next year.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Okay, before we do, everybody say goodbye to the broadcast.
Goodbye.
Bye. Ciao.
You